Welcome to this video. My name is Pedro Rodrigues Ribeiro. I'm a psychologist from Portugal, and today I would like to share some thoughts about hypnosis and mainly hypnotic regression, memory work, and also the the sexual abuse dilemma and the sexual abuse news that were really popular, especially in the 80s and the 70s in the United States and some countries in Europe. So, first of all, let me just say that regression type therapies always existed. Hypnosis is just one way of doing regression style therapy. If you think about it, when you are doing psychoanalysis, you are in some ways dealing with past relationships, with past feelings, with past objects, with past traumas, and the way that you do psychoanalysis is in having those kind of insights, those kind of catharsis, really helps the patient in his present time and to deal with the issues that are happening. So, in that sense, is a type of regression, and that's why hypnotic regression, age regression, is mostly associated with psychoanalytical approaches in doing hypnosis. However, it's important to realize how regression really works. The definition of regression is to regress, to return to a past memory, to a distant point in time in people's history. For example, if I were to regress to my first day in school, I would close my eyes and I would see the situation as my memory unfolds, and if I'm absorbed in that memory, I would start to relive the situation as I was with when I have six when I have six when I was in the first day of school. So it really is complex in the sense that it really depends on one's memories. The problem is memory is a reconstructive process. We are always reconstruing and modifying our memories. We have the emotional significance of a certain situation. However, the details can be altered as time passes by, and some things that we are confident or we strongly believe that they happen, and they happen in the way that we remember. Some of them are not true. Some of them are merely reconstructive memories. When we have memory lapses, our mind tends to reconstruct those moments in a way that makes sense to ourselves, to our history, but also with the memory fragments that resides. For example, if I give you the initial part of a story of a memory of a situation, and I give you the final part and nothing else, your memory, your brain will start to construct the middle part in the way that makes sense to join the beginning and the end. So the middle part is not real, but to you it makes sense when joining the beginning and the end. That's how memory works, and that's why we don't have certain kind of memories when we are very young. For example, when 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Why? Because the memory structures in our brain haven't truly developed, and we don't have the consciousness to interpret it, to give certain memories a meaning, a significance. So, and when we are younger, we have certain kind of memories, and we remind ourselves in one way, and as we grow older and we think about the past situation, that memory, we can look to that memory with another pair of eyes, with another kind of significance. We can do those kind of things because we grow older, we grow wiser, we grow experience light, and we have different kind of memory structures. The analogy of the mind being a computer, and we can divide it and compile memories as uh, as a kind of hardware or a kind of USB drive or a disk. That's not the way that memory works. So when someone is in a hypnotic age regression, that is a very high suggestibility state, someone can convince himself or herself that they have certain memories that in reality they don't have. And these kind of phenomena are called false memories. False memories can be produced in research settings, in clinical settings, and it's not required for someone to be in a hypnotic state. Researchers like Elizabeth Loftus, that is a well-known researcher in the field of memory and cognition, proved that false memories can be achieved, can be constructive into people. For example, the illusion of memory from Julia Shaw, etc., etc. So, with research, we know that false memories are a reality. Hypnosis and other kind of approaches that are intended to give more to give to make people go into a very high suggestibility state can easily produce false memories, even without the interference from the therapist. If you have a strong belief, your memory can produce those kind of significance, those kinds of realities, because you believe them to be true. With If you believe them strong enough, your mind can produce those kinds of memories, those kind of images, those kind of significance. Uh, and certain therapists can be very influential. The role of the therapist, without a doubt, is a very influential role. People tend to believe what the therapist says because they acknowledge the therapist as an expert in a certain field. So they tend to believe what the therapist says. They are being suggestible to what the therapist says in certain with certain themes. Obviously, not all of them. They don't believe everything the therapist says, but they tend to believe some of the things because they attribute a certain kind of authority to an expertise to the therapist. In that regard, in the late 70s, early 70s, late 80s, in the United States, there were a lot of reports about possible sexual abuses and acts regarding satanic cults and satanic practices associated with sexual behaviors and possible sexual abuses. But the interesting part is that a lot of people didn't remember them. They were convinced that the memories were hidden. It's a process that is very common in psychoanalysis. It's a defense mechanism. It's not regress memories. Is well, I don't remember the term in English. Repressed memories. Yes, repressed memories. So the person represses a certain memory because that memory, that occasion, was so bad, was so horrible that someone doesn't want to remember. So they repress the memory. And when they are in a certain situation, years go by, or when they are in therapy and they start to work, or when they have a dream, those kind of repressed memories can surface into consciousness and they start to remember again. Obviously, that's not the case because in terms of research, repressed memories is a concept that's not well established because of the false memories syndrome. But a typical person can went to the therapist, and when the therapist starts to work with the patient, they start to discover that certain repressed memories exists. So the therapist suggests to do some work with hypnosis. The patient accepts because they want to know. They go to hypnosis. They start to get certain suggestions. They start to regress, and as the therapeutic work progresses, the patient starts to believe more and more that she or he was abused, and the accuser is mostly someone within the family. When they discover this, they are the suggestion, the advice that the therapist gives to the patient is to, well, make a complaint, make an accusation, and not only in the criminal side, in the judicial side, but also to stay away from them, to get away as far as they can, to cut relationships, to cut the relation with the family. So typically they they start to send letters accusing the family member of abusing abusing her or him. They don't want to be a part of the family anymore. They don't want the family to have a relationship with her her or his children, and they pursue criminal uh, criminal justice. The problem is the only thing that we have in terms of evidence is the session is the the interview that um, that the patient did in the hypnotic state, accusing someone of raping the, him or her. And in the 70s and the 80s, hypnosis and those kinds of done interviews done by a therapist or by law enforcement officers with special training were admissible in court. So people could be accused and convicted of sexual abuse, of rape, only with the report, only with the interview. That's the only evidence that they needed. As time went by and really criminology evolved into DNA and other physical evidence, they start to realize that what happened didn't happen. The evidence wouldn't, the physical evidence and the DNA evidence wouldn't stack with the interview, what the people reported. So a lot of decisions were turned around, and after time in prison, the accused were freed. However, the relationships weren't the same. Even if the patient believed and realized that he or she was wrong, it was really difficult to salvage the relationship, to rebuild the relationship. Think about it. If a family member accused you of rape and they falsely accuse you of rape, and you went to prison and do time and discover that the accusation wasn't with strong evidence, and you are freed, would you like to have a relationship with someone that accused you of something so horrible as rape? It's difficult. So the United States started to ban hypnotic interviewing, or interviews that they viewed as highly suggestible. For example, even as a witness, if someone has had hypnosis sessions in therapy or another capacity, they automatically couldn't be a witness. It's not permitted. So hypnosis in the forensic context is a very difficult tool to utilize, especially in countries that have strong regulations, strong laws regarding hypnosis and regarding hypnotic interviewing. Um, Countries like the United States, Italy, Spain, and others. Portugal, as I know, and I'm not a law specialist, um, I don't know of any law prohibiting or permitting uh, hypnosis or hypnotic interviewing regarding forensic testimony. So it's a very thin line. Uh, and in conclusion, I would like uh, to reinforce my views on uh, hypnotic age regression and memory. It's very difficult to establish that a memory can can be real or not, especially when regards to someone's childhood. If a patient is in his 30s, 40s, or 50s, and he wants to have an age regression session for a memory or a repressed memory or repressed situation that they believe they experience in childhood, please have a great deal of attention to these kinds of details. Hypnotic age regression is very fallible. The only thing that the phenomenon really produces is a belief that something that the patient is experiencing is true or might be true. It So go with care every time you think on doing hypnotic age regression, regression style therapy, or other kinds of interviews and testimonies that strongly relies on memories. And please be careful to not be suggestible, to not be uh, influential to the point that someone gives you the response that you desire. Please be careful with those kinds of things. So, thank you for your time. I see you next time.